Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and there's a lot of talk about Deutsche Bank collapsing, and we've been talking about Deutsche Bank forever, which we'll get into later, but Jim Cramer, of all people, the same guy who told everyone to buy Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank right before it collapsed, same with Silvergate, I believe it was as well, is now saying that Deutsche Bank is fine, it's very wealthy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which means do the opposite of whatever Jim Cramer tells you to do. As we see these crazy stories coming out of this out of the Wall Street Journal, Deutsche Bank stock falls on contagion fears. Concern over Germany's leading lender emerges days after Credit Suisse was forced into a takeover. And then we have this article out of CNN Business. Deutsche Bank, UBS stocks sink as fears of European banking crisis returns. Now, remember, UBS just bought Credit Suisse, and now they are facing the same problem. In fact, we just recently did a video the other day on how there are 186 banks that are set to collapse in the same way that Silicon Valley Bank did. And this is all for a certain goal, for an economic reset, of course. But nonetheless, we need to report on this. I mean, this has been happening for a long time. Look at the Deutsche Bank stock price. Now, this is looking back all the way to 2001, October 5th, 2001, and it's been crashing since May 11th of 2007. And we've seen it just in a free fall for years. And we started reporting on it back in 2015 when it was 27.67 US dollars per share. And now it's $9.35. We've just seen it repeatedly crater and crater and crater. And it's amazing that it's lasted as long as it has. I mean, here's an example of a video that I did with John Sneisen back on March 28th, 2018. And the title was Deutsche Bank is in big trouble as they continue to fail. And around that time, I believe it was within the next year, they tried to merge with Commerzbank. And Commerzbank is another major German lender. And that fell through. And at that point, it was clear, okay, it's over. It's over. In fact, I went to the Deutsche Bank headquarters back in the beginning of 2019 and tried to troll them at the building, but I was, of course, kicked out. So Deutsche Bank is something I know very well. In fact, taxpayers are going to have to pay for this if they get rescued, which they say they will be. But keep in mind that back in February of 2016, I did a report with Stephen Kendall on Deutsche Bank where they acknowledged they had $75 trillion in derivative exposure, which, just to put this straight, the global GDP is $75 trillion and the GDP of Germany is $3.5 trillion. And it's going down now, unfortunately, due to the controlled collapse of the economy. You cannot bail this bank out. It's not possible to do. If you do that, everyone will be searching for scraps of food in the streets. It is evil what they're doing, but the end goal is a cashless society. And the World Economic Forum has been talking about this for a long time. And imagine that, we have been talking about it for a long time too. This video is from January 25th, 2018, where the video is called Davos Elite Desperately Want a Cashless Society, but Crash May Come First. And we have earlier videos on this, of course, but the reason we can't find them now is because when our YouTube channel got taken down, Odyssey only backed up a certain amount of videos. They only go back about 5 years. So unfortunately, we can't show you the earlier videos, but they exist. And I have them on backup drives and everything. But again, we were talking about the World Economic Forum, talking about bringing in a cashless society back then, and they need a banking crisis to do that. In fact, the article I wrote at that time says, Josh Sigurdson talks with author and economic analyst John Sneisen about the recent meeting in Davos for the World Economic Forum, where globalists, world leaders, bankers, economists, and business leaders are meeting to discuss the economic transformation of the world and, in their eyes, a necessity for people to bend over to a massive financial global order. The Great Reset. It was before it was called the Great Reset. We called it, get this, you can't make this stuff up, the Big Reset. We called it the Big Reset back then. And then they came out with their term, the Great Reset, after that. I mean, so by the way, when people say, oh, if sky's falling, you're just making things up to make money and all that, we make almost no money. And on top of that, we've been right. We've been vindicated. But with Deutsche Bank, and this is an important one, we've been talking about this for a long time, and Deutsche Bank would be the thing that would knock down the global economy. So we are going to go into Deutsche Bank today and talk a little bit about this bank that Jim Cramer says is awesome. And all the while, people are flooding to gold and silver, and people are flooding to cryptocurrencies. And, one of the things, and this isn't economic advice or investment advice, I should say, but one of the things we've been looking at a lot is Epic Cash, because it's a privacy coin based on the Mimblewimble protocol. And in the last few months, it has gone parabolic because people care about privacy in the face of a cashless society. It's so important to get off the grid in this sense. But also, before we get into this video on Deutsche Bank, I want to urge people to get gold and silver today as well. Physical gold and silver. You can go to kirkelliottphd.com/wham, and you can buy physical gold and silver today. Kirk Elliott is the author of 11 books. He is a double PhD. He's been on our show. He's been on InfoWars, etc. And you get a whole bunch of free special reports from him if you go through our link in the description and sign up at the sign up sheet. All it takes is a moment to put in your email, first name, last name, phone number. And do you want to liquidate an IRA, 401k, 403b, checking, savings, or brokerage account into physical gold and silver? In the face of this banking crisis, you better move fast, my friends. We have options below. And also, as always, I urge people to check out heavensharvest.com for long-term storable foods that are non-GMO, heirloom seeds, water filtration and storage, and books on how to get started. Use code WHAM, WAM, and you get free shipping on much of these products in the US. And even if you aren't in the US or don't qualify, I still urge you to use code WHAM because it helps keep you alive and us alive at the same time, so we can continue mobilizing people to save their lives in the face of the controlled collapse of the supply chain, which the World Economic Forum has been working on for many years on a dependent, culture that is being driven into the ground on purpose to bring in the new Chinese world order reset. You save money on this stuff today, never mind later when it could save your life. Experts say you need at least 3 months of storable foods to survive a supply chain crisis. So again, go to heavensharvest.com, use code WAM. We also have another link for whamsurvival.com for long-term storable foods. You save a bunch of money if you go through us on there as well. So you have options. Anyway, as Jim Cramer says, Deutsche Bank is awesome. A-okay, don't worry about it. They're doing well, which they literally haven't. I mean, if you look at the stock, as I showed earlier, they literally haven't at all ever done good since 2007. But, he says it's great. They have low cash deposit ratio, higher than a lot of the big banks, though. And as I mentioned, there's 186 banks, according to a new study, which involved like Yale and Stanford University and et cetera, that are in the same position as Silicon Valley Bank. So get ready, my friends. This out of the Wall Street Journal, it says Deutsche Bank stock falls on contagion fears. Concern over Germany's leading lender emerges days after Credit Suisse was forced into a takeover. And as the article goes into, it says investors sparked a sell-off in Deutsche Bank AG and thrust one of Europe's most important lenders into the center of concerns about the health of the global financial system. Remember, this is Donald Trump's bank as well. It says shares of Germany's largest lender tumbled as much as 15%, their third consecutive day of losses, though they later regained some ground and closed down 8.5%. The cost to insure against its default using credit default swaps soared to the highest level since 2020. Oh, man, the credit default swaps are insane. The concern over Deutsche Bank emerged days after Credit Suisse Group AG was forced into a takeover by its larger and more stable rival UBS Group AG since the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank in the U.S. earlier this year. Investors have scoured the globe for institutions perceived as vulnerable. And I quote, people want to avoid anything that could come under focus, said John Johnson, credit portfolio manager at Neuberger Berman. Now, it's important to point out that this is just the beginning of this contagion. And, we've seen a lot of pensions that were insured completely tumble. And if you actually look at the insurance companies and you look at the FDIC and you look at these, these other insurance organizations in other countries, they are the same. Their coverage is around, get this, this is crazy, 0.666% covered. You heard that right. 0.666% covered. Pretty incredible. We have a video with Tim Pachot going up on that right away. But continuing on in this article, it says Deutsche Bank sits at the heart of the German economy despite years of retrenchment to make the bank smaller and safer. it remains a globally vital bank with a major footprint on Wall Street, trading bonds, derivatives, and currencies. It serves multinational companies with bread and butter basics of lending, managing money, and corporate accounts. And I quote, Deutsche Bank has thoroughly modernized and reorganized its business model, and it is a very profitable bank, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz told reporters at a European Union summit in Brussels on Friday. There is no reason whatsoever to be concerned. That's why you should be concerned when these psychopathic globalists who are plotting the collapse of their own empire, the Western Empire, to bring in the Great Reset, the World Economic Forum's vision. As Klaus Schwab says, their role model is China. The BRICS world reserve currency system that's taken over, that is the goal. Some analysts, it says, and investors appeared perplexed that Deutsche Bank was taking the brunt of the market's ire, though it has long been considered one of Europe's most problematic banks, as Overhaul launched in 2019, stabilized its operations. Unlike Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank's deposit base has remained steady in recent quarters. Last year was the Frankfurt-based bank's most profitable since 2007. And I quote, the market is on edge. It seems to just be looking for targets like, Tatiana Grail Castro, portfolio manager of Muzinich and Co. I want to point out, they say profitable. All the profits are fake. It's all fake, funny money. It's all air. It's all air. We know this because they've literally had to arrest multiple bankers at Deutsche Bank in the past over spoofing markets. Same with JP Morgan. Same with a lot of big banks. Wells Fargo, spoofing the silver and gold markets. It's like pushing a beach ball underwater. After a while, it gains pressure and it blows up in your face. But they've been doing this for a long time. This is nothing new. So to claim that they're profitable it needs to have an asterisk and a footnote below it. It is not profitable. It is that they are faking the creation of money. They're faking digits in their computer that aren't in their vaults. They're not profitable, and they are utilizing something that versus inflation is actually doing worse. So a lot of people have money tied up and they, IRAs, 401ks, whatever it might be. And that money is losing value all the time. So if you say, oh, you made 2.5% or even 5% over like a year, 2-year, 5-year period with different treasuries, whatever it might be, you're actually losing money versus inflation. It's silly. So profitable. Oh yeah, sure. It's profitable if you're not paying attention to inflation, which by the way is way higher than what they say it is. So it's all fake. It's fraud. Basically, it's fraud. And I've gone to the front doors of Deutsche Bank, dodged the jumping bankers and tried to get into the building, and they kicked me out back then. But, I've been to Frankfurt many times, and it's also interesting to point out that you will never see more homeless people and crack addicts and meth addicts in a major city next to banks than you will in the financial district of course, Frankfurt, which, by the way, faces a park, which across from that park is literally the Commerzbank building, where they tried to merge and it failed because Commerzbank didn't want that kind of collateral damage. And they're facing a lot of big problems themselves. All of them are. So if you look at the cash to deposit ratios of these banks, we're dealing with one of the biggest banking crises in history. They've already been insolvent. The recession never ended in 2008. It's just been papered over again and again, and money is debt, and people are faced with, unfortunately, having to bail out these banks. And in many cases, we're seeing bail-ins start to begin, as Kirk Elliott recently pointed out on our show. We are seeing the very real possibility of full-on bail-ins. And the FDIC said in their statement back in November that they expect to see banks one of these days just close down on Fridays. Well, Silicon Valley Bank closed down on a Friday. We warned about this in 2022. And of course, then they said we expect bail-ins in the next year, possibly in 2023. Well, here we are. They know what's coming. This is all planned. It's all meant to bring down the global economy, to push people into complete subservience. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, my friends, we were warned about this for so many years. We've been talking about the cashless society long before this video, but this is January 25th, 2018. Davos elite desperately want a cashless society, but crash may come first. Of course, we are witnessing the beginning of that crash in order to give them an excuse to bring in the centrally planned cashless society. And it's so annoying to be talking about this for so many years and people still think we are crazy. But it is written basically in the blueprint for the cashless society that they need this to happen. Henry Kissinger met with Mao Zedong in the early 1970s to create an alliance with China to save them from starvation and prop them up as a guinea pig state. And that was all for the purpose of having a monopoly on exporting and importing, etc. And then when we saw French battleships enter New York Harbor in the early 1970s around the same time, they wanted their gold back, and the U.S. didn't have any gold, even though they claimed they did. So they ended up switching from the gold standard to the fiat standard. And that led to Henry Kissinger meeting with the Saudis in order to create an alliance with them for the dollar to create a petrodollar. So they trade oil in US dollars. And then in the late 1970s, Zbigniew Brzezinski, in the same role as Kissinger, created the Trilateral Commission under the Carter administration. And when he did that, the whole purpose, as he said, was to create a world technocratic superstate. And he just happened to have a main focus on China. They've been planning this world order for a long time. China has just called for a global order, a one world government just a few weeks ago, and now they're shaking hands with China. And Saudi Arabia, it goes full circle. The U.S. created this problem in order to create a move, a crisis, if you will, an excuse to go into the Great Reset, which we are now seeing. The technocracy is now there in China. We have the social credit. We have the zero COVID policies that they had, which are their litmus test for the zero carbon policies worldwide, with 15-minute cities in a cashless society tied to carbon credits that are tied to your bank account that determine how much gas, water, electricity you use on a daily basis based on your smart meter, which will determine your food rations and your ability to leave your neighborhood. And that is all based on the Chinese model, which they've been propping up all this time. This is what they've been planning for. We are now here in the midst of it. The COVID stuff was a litmus test. They're all puzzle pieces. Now you see the US dollar collapsing. You see the banking crisis worsen. You see housing collapsing. You see the fact that the supply chain is being collapsed. Factories burning down, climate policies, etc. They're going after farmers. So there has been some success in the Netherlands with the Farmers Party and etc. But their problem isn't over yet. And we have the energy crisis, which is also a control collapse, which they're blowing up Nord Stream. They attack substations, refineries in Mexico because they wouldn't go along with a Green New Deal kind of situation. And on top of that, the false flag World War III situation, which again is the greatest excuse they could use with China and Russia versus the US and Britain and Europe in order to bring in the Great Reset. So it looks like it happened because there was a battle and, it was chaos and martial law. We had to do it, they say. It's all for one purpose. It's all scripted. It's been scripted for decades. This was all part of the plan. And on top of that, you have the weakening of American and European culture, not just with immigration, because there's nothing wrong with immigration as it is. It's the issue that they're purposely trying to cause race wars and civil wars by dragging, people from prisons in Syria and putting them in London. Like I've lived in the Middle East. They're amazing there. It's when you have people that don't even want to go to these countries, forced out of their countries, put into those places, given welfare. That's a huge problem. And then on top of that, the dumbing down of people and the compliance, the coddledness of the public today, and making kids trans and drag queens, story times, all that kind of stuff. It all is part of the same agenda, my friends, all of it. And it's meant to force us into weakness because, as the saying goes, hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. And we're between weak men and hard times right now. And there's a perfect order for them to say, we got the Fed now, digital currency system, which will ease into the CBDC, central bank digital currency. And then when they switch over to the new currency, BRICS, Chinese world order, we could just ease in from one currency to another because what does it matter? No one's using cash anyway. That is how they get us, my friends. And we're in the midst of it. This is the technocratic world order. We are here. There's ways to avoid it, but in the Great Reset, the purpose is to make people weak, dependent, desperate, so they beg the government for help for the problem the government created in the first place. So I urge people, again, to get prepared. I want to mobilize humanity, and this is one of the ways the only way I can really do it is by telling people the negatives so we can make positives. As I've said before, If a tribe is tracked 500 years ago by a lion and someone goes, oh, there's a lion tracking us, you don't go, well, that's negative. I don't want to hear about that. No, you go, what shall we do about this negative issue? We need to take proactive actions in order to stop it from happening or to mitigate the situation and prepare for it. That's all I'm trying to do on a daily basis is get people to prepare for this situation. We need to know the negatives to make positives. It's silly not to. It's a basic survival instinct for all human beings to take proactive measures instead of waiting to see what happens. Waiting to see what happens will be our downfall. We know what's going to happen. We know the goal. We're not going to stop the Great Reset from happening, but we can live through it, get around it, and as it comes collapsing down, which it will, we can build upon it. So we have so many different options here today, my friends. Again, getting out of the banking system is a huge part. I always urge people, Epic Cash, Monero, stuff like that. Those are privacy coins. I am not giving financial advice. I'm just saying what I think, in my opinion, is best. Utilizing decentralized cryptocurrencies that are private is a very real way to get around a lot of this stuff. Well, no matter how ironic that might sound, it is a really good way to do that. And then on top of that, we have things like gold and silver, which are skyrocketing alongside crypto in the face of this banking crisis because they're both made for this kind of situation. So I urged people earlier, and I'll urge them again, kirkelliottphd.com/wham. You could go and buy physical gold and silver, go to that sign up sheet, schedule a call with Kirk Elliott, a double PhD who has 11 books and does a bunch of speaking worldwide. It's been on our show, InfoWars, Mike Huckabee's show, etc. And he is doing amazing work speaking out against Great Reset and all that kind of stuff. And you can liquidate your 401k, 403b, checking, savings, brokerage accounts, IRA, whatever it might be, into physical gold and silver. So fill out that sheet today. We have whamsurvival.com for long-term storable foods. You save a bunch of money if you go through us on there. And of course, heavensharvest.com for long-term storable foods that are non-GMO. Heirloom seeds, water filtration, storage, and books on how to get started. By the way, heirloom seeds are a gift that keeps on giving for life. You could just keep planting them. You'll never starve again. You could use code WHAM, WAM, over at heavensharvest.com and get free shipping on much of these products. And even if you don't qualify, I still urge you to do that because it helps keep you alive and us alive at the same time. And we just want to make sure that we mobilize humanity. We don't make almost anything off of it, but we do think it's important to be able to get those of you watching to be prepared because the basis of humanity is individualism. It's freedom. It's synonymous with those things. And if we as humans aren't willing to stand for our humanity on Earth here today, then what are we doing here? So I just urge people, I want to mobilize people, yourself, your grandparents, your grandkids, your kids, your parents, whatever it might be, your brother, sister, friends, whatever it might be. If they won't get prepared, nudge them. This is the time. They'll call you crazy now, but they also called me crazy when I did this video on, the World Economic Forum pushing for a cashless society back on January 25th of 2018. I'm not messing around here. I've been calling on this for a long time. And now we have things like our recent video ECB had pranked where she admits that the CBDC's about control. It's written into their budgets, basically. My friends, this is our opportunity to protect ourselves. We have other options below. Lion Energy for energy to store and be able to power in the case of the grid collapsing. We have a lot of options and health options as well that I find very important in the face of all of this. So I'm going to bring that up on the screen right now. So we have rncstore.com, Richardson Nutritional Center, your source for Laetrile online, made famous by G. Edward Griffin's book, World Without Cancer. You can get your apricot seeds, Laetrile, amygdalin, and vitamin B17 there. Again, this is very important. You should stock up on this for sure. We also have the late great Dr. Zelenko's vitamins and supplements. Link below. You can save a bunch of money if you go through our link and you get free shipping. And finally, my friends, we have ClearPhone, where you can get a smartphone that doesn't track and trace you. It's decentralized. It's de-Googled. It has Linux. It's faster than the Android. It has full national coverage. This is a way to not end up with all the things you've ever done ending up on the social credit system later on. So you could check our link in the description and buy one of these ClearPhones today. They're a really cool thing that you can get all the normal apps you have without being tracked and traced by China. So anyway, I appreciate everyone watching. If you want to help support us, check those links in the description, my friends. We have GoGetFunding.com, Patreon, Subscribe Star. We have a Bitcoin address, and we have a Cointree link with a bunch of different cryptocurrencies that you could donate in if you please. We truly appreciate it. That includes privacy coins, etc. We are completely viewer funded, and we depend on you guys. You are the heartbeat of independent media, and we thank you so much for those of you that are helping in this way as well. We have an Epic Fund Me campaign where you can donate an Epic Cash, a privacy coin based on the Wimble protocol. Very important stuff, as I mentioned earlier. And of course, we have things like Teespring, where we have merchandise. We are on Rockfin at World Alternative Media, where we sometimes put up exclusive content to those that pay. And we have a newsletter, www.iamband.com. Sign up to our newsletter, and it just takes your email. It's super easy to do, and we appreciate it. We are on Telegram, World Alternative Media, Telegram channel, World Alternative Media announcements. We are on band.video, BitChute, Odyssey, and Rumble at World Alternative Media. And of course, we're on Hive, Steam at Vigilante.tv at Josh Sigurdson. And on the bad guys, TikTok and Instagram, World Alternative Media, Twitter and Getter at World Alt Media, and on all the major podcast platforms like Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Make sure to sign up there, give us a follow, give us a good rating on there so we can mobilize more humanity for the future so that we can build a beautiful free civilization from the ashes of the Great Reset. Anyways, hit that like button, share on social media, hit the notification bell, and hit subscribe if you have not yet already. And we appreciate everyone watching today. Live by example, live freely, always, my friends. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.